Welcome back. This is Force 13 Live. Hello, my name's Nathan Foy, and what you're looking at as we begin the next hour is the Atlantic. And this is some recent imagery of the Atlantic, where Invest 97 has been crawling along the central Atlantic, moving towards the west. It's been doing it for days now, and well, it could become a significant storm in the next few days, and I think there's going to be a lot of conversation on this one and a lot of speculation during this hour, but we'll try and tell you as best we can what the storm or system is expected to do. Hello, there's me again. The time is 11:01 here, that would be 10:01 on the universal clock, and I'm back with the Skype team. Hello.
Hello, guys. Alright, so
I already have some graphics, so
Oh my.
Excellent.
People are prepared for this
Nice.
one.
people are prepared.
yeah, let's try to get through this, get the maximum information out as possible with minimal speculation.
Okay,
Okay, what do we got?
so this is basically my forecast for what is 97L right now. Could be a depression by the time we get to Wednesday, most likely. If it gets a name, it would be Matthew. But here's my current forecast cone and the Force 13 forecast cone from the Storm Early Warning System, SEWS. Yeah, development into a depression by at least Tuesday night or Wednesday. By the way, if my mic quality isn't that great, I apologize.
It's fine.
Okay. It's Landfall and Hispaniola. It looks to be the most likely scenario right now, considering the fact that it's just the way the steering currents are suggesting, and the fact that we are approaching October, and this is when storms typically begin to do the recurve before they can get to the United States. Now, beyond Hispaniola, if it does make landfall in Hispaniola, it's relatively uncertain. Most of the models, or at least the ensemble means, are saying that it will move in between Hatteras and Bermuda, maybe a little bit closer to Hatteras. Intensity really is not yet known. As most of you might already know, the GFS has been going absolutely bonkers with the system. A couple of nights ago, it was saying sub 900 over the Cayman Islands, but that's not going to happen. Let's face it. So this will most likely be what I'm saying, at least a Cat 2 right now. I might have to revise this up to possibly a 3. And it would be the second major hurricane of the season if it does that, behind Gaston. And yeah, anybody whose interests lie in the Windward Islands or any of the Greater Antilles, or the entire Caribbean for that matter, should watch the system very, very closely, as this could be a pretty significant storm for some of the Greater Antilles. We have many analogs, some I can think of off the top of my head. Emily of 1987, that made landfall in the Dominican Republic as a Category 2. An unnamed storm from 1921, I believe. An unnamed storm from 1887, as well as an unnamed storm from 1855, I believe. So I'm going to pass it off to someone else now.
Well,
Yes, Hank. I'll take it up from here, and I'll show some of the actual discrete model runs here. I would definitely not trust any I chose the wrong screen share. I would definitely not trust any model intensity guidance out to this point, because, as I'm about to show you guys, the model intensity guidance is literally all over the place right now. I'm first going to start off by showing you guys some GFS ensemble runs. You can see here this yellowish, orangish blob. That is 97L becoming Matthew. You can see, oh boy, you can see that they're approaching Barbados, pretty much passing just to the north of St. Vincent, most of the ensembles anyways, passing in between St. Lucia and Grenada. And then as it gets into the Caribbean, some of the GFS ensembles stay south towards the ABC Islands. Some of the models stay in the Central Caribbean for the most part. And then what is pretty much agreed upon here is a rather abrupt northerly turn towards Hispaniola, and all but one of the ensembles actually make landfall in Hispaniola.
And Devon,
the other one just misses to the west.
If I'm not
Yes?
mistaken there, it shows intensification and then weakening before landfall.
Again, this is just the normalized spread. This isn't necessarily how strong the storm is. But basically, anything in this yellowish, orangish thing is where the storm may be, with orange being
Anywhere
the most
inside
likely.
the closed isobars.
Yes, the closed isobars kind of showing what is
At the moment.
strength,
Maybe not later on.
The isobars kind of showing a bit of strength, but I really wouldn't, again, trust the intensity guidance, especially on ensemble runs.
And just as you were progressing on further,
progressing on further, most of the ensembles take the storm over the Turks and Caicos in southeastern Bahamas, and then they go all over the place. Most of them go in between Bermuda and Cape Hatteras. One ensemble model in particular hooks back to the west and makes landfall in the Outer Banks. Most of the other ones stay offshore. Some kind of come close to New England, but don't quite get there. That's the GFS ensembles. And now we'll take a look at the CMC ensembles, which, in my opinion, are a lot more interesting, to say the least. Where the GFS ensembles really agree with each other. They're pretty much saying that there's going to be this southerly track through the Caribbean and then this northerly shoot up to Hispaniola. The CMC model is literally all over the place. So you can see Matthew entering in the screen on the right.
CMC.
Again, pretty much the same path starting out, going near Barbados, but this time the track is expected to be between Martinique and the Grenadines rather than as far south as Grenada. So it's a little bit further north for the CMC. And then after that, the model has no idea what's going to happen.
Now, earlier today, I noted that 5 of the 6 major models predicted the northward turn. What do you think about the possibilities of a complete westerly track now?
Yes, that's actually why I pulled this model up. Because you'll see that some ensembles, they do take the northerly turn here, but they take it very late. And in fact, some of the ensemble runs taking it over as far west as Jamaica and the Cayman Islands and Florida.
Even Nicaragua, possibly? No.
And one really far out ensemble here, taking it over Mexico, which is interesting.
And keeps going over there towards the rest of Mexico. But let's not dwell too much on just one.
It's just one ensemble out of 50 that run this model.
But it's so easy to take the anomalies and take them for gospel.
Yes. The real thing that you should take out of this graphic is that in 5 days, the CMC thinks that the storm will be located in basically any place in this yellow blob here. So, again, this is further west than what the GFS is saying. But this includes things like Cuba, Jamaica, even down here towards Venezuela, Colombia, and the ABC Islands. The storm might pass over that. So, very interesting scenario being shown there from the CMC. I'm going to now pull up the ECMWF because they've even shifted a bit further west, but still hinting at a Hispaniola landfall. The ECMWF predicts a very far southerly track, potentially a landfall in Venezuela and the ABC Islands. Definitely a second landfall there, but then a stall and a turn northward and potentially a turn back to the northeast as it makes landfall in, maybe just misses landfall here in Haiti, but makes landfall in Cuba.
And just to make a note, only 2 storms that have formed east of Hispaniola have hit Haiti from the southwest.
And one of them is not a storm that I would like to mention.
It's not then.
Oh yeah.
Yes. So that's what the ECMWF does. It's the slowest of all the models, I should say, which is interesting. Not expecting any kind of impact on Haiti or the Dominican Republic for a week and a half, pretty much. And I guess we'll go to the HWRF now because, hey, they've been God this year. So
It's true.
let's see. they got another storm correct now with Megi. I mean,
Yeah.
with at least with its size, anyways.
This one will be a big test, though.
Yep. So we'll see what the HWRF says here. I'm going to assume pretty much in line with the CMC and GFS with a near pass on Barbados.
Very close to a landfall there.
Yes, and then a pass between, I believe that would be St. Vincent and St. Lucia.
I think so. I can't tell, it's so small.
Continuing on to the Caribbean as a rather small system, taking a northerly track compared to most of the runs that we've shown you thus far. And then, yeah, for the most part, curving towards the eastern Dominican Republic there.
It's an abrupt turn, all right.
Yeah, let's try to stay away from Santo Domingo. Try to. Again, I wouldn't necessarily focus in on the intensity of the storm here because I'm about to get to it right now.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting. Intensity models all over the place.
Good Lord. Okay, let's go there right now. 97L. We've already gone over track guidance. Intensity guidance. Here it is on a graphic for you.
Oh, the joys.
And right now the models are saying anywhere between a weak tropical storm and a Category 4.
Well, I'll tell you something, after looking at all of that, what we've been watching for the last 5 days or so now, maybe not 5, but almost, and it only ends up being a weak tropical storm.
Yeah. So I've comprised four potential tracks that this storm can take. So there's 4 potential tracks that this can take. This could take a very southerly track and remain very weak and run into South America as a potential maybe threat of 93 like track and remain very weak there. It can become an Emily of 2011, again, remain weak throughout the Caribbean and then kind of get absorbed into Hispaniola. It could turn into an Emily of 1987 and hit Hispaniola as a rather significant storm and then curve out to sea. Or it can turn into an Emily of 2005 and not do any of those things and continue west through the Caribbean. What the most likely of those scenarios are right now? Probably Emily of 2005 and the Brett of 93 are the least likely scenarios.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
It's looking like a landfall in Hispaniola is not certain, but the models are definitely trending towards that way, where I'll take a look at the model cluster here.
Maybe it could do an Emily of 1999.
That'll just...
Oh, no.
That would be hilarious, turning north before reaching the islands.
You know what? I will laugh, and I wouldn't be surprised, honestly.
Wow.
And I saw one Facebook post today say, hey, this storm could get affected by wind shear and just not become anything. I'm like, that's been the preferred option since 2013.
Yeah, well, here we are. There's those models there, and earlier today I think there was more consensus, but a handful of models trending westward again.
Yes, a handful of models trending westward, but I think the most important thing is that they have this rather abrupt northward turn, and a lot of them have a rather abrupt northward turn.
Potential stalling during that time as well for some runs there.
Yes,
it looks like.
I see some I see some runs stalling just to the north of Venezuela and Colombia here. You could be like the UK Met model and make landfall in Venezuela. That's been predicted for quite a while, actually, out of the UK Met. And again, you have some things like the HWRF, a couple of consensus models, the CMC, the GFS, they're all, and the ECMWF, which kind of parallels what the CMC is saying over here. They're pretty much clustering around what's going on in Hispaniola.
So the 18Z of the GFS has gotten far out enough so we can determine where landfall would be in Hispaniola, and it's saying Santo Domingo.
Oh dear.
Yeah, let's
exactly
not.
Where we want it.
I would at this point in time, I would wait for all the ensembles to fully come out in the GEFS and wait for that.
True, but it's still something of note.
Yes. Obviously, that would be a not good scenario. That will definitely not be a good scenario for the Dominican Republic. Yeah, that's just not a good scenario at all.
That's not what David did in Santo Domingo.
Yeah, let's not go there.
Yeah. Overall, it's not really looking that great.
It looks like it's going to be bad for someone.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
By the way, if any of the viewers have any questions or comments for us, I always say this at the start of the show, but I forgot this time. You can, of course, just send it in on YouTube right now if you're watching live. Not if you're watching it recorded. That would be a little bit pointless.
Next, we do have a question from Martinez saying, is it rare to see a tropical system hitting South America and the North Atlantic? Yeah, kind of. It happens, but not very often.
Again, it doesn't happen very often, and usually when storms hit South America, they are on the weak variety. I think the strongest storm to make landfall in the South America area is that I believe there was a hurricane in 1933 that hit Trinidad as a Cat 1, and I think that's the closest that there's ever been to.
I'm just grabbing my history book.
I think that's the closest that South America has gotten to getting hit by a hurricane.
South America was hit by a tropical storm. Alma, 1974, of course. Brett, 93 as well.
Joan, 1988.
I heard that.
I believe Irene in the 1970s as well.
Maybe.
A storm in 1892 was a Category 2, and a storm in 1877, also a Category 2, in the northernmost tip of Venezuela and Colombia. Both of them hit both of those locations. And apart from that, we're really struggling. Joan of 88, of course, Devon mentioned. And I think Cesar just about managed it as well.
Okay. Yeah. Cesar is another storm that was very far south.
And that is the end of the list. So very few.
Well, actually, you still have really strong storms in the Atlantic that affected it but didn't make landfall. I guess the biggest one that I could think of off the top of my head would be Ivan. That passed very close there as a Category 4 edging on 5.
That was much further to the north, though, Hank.
It's still... well, yeah, the track was further north, but the storm still affected that area.
Yes, but not significantly.
Yeah, well, still, it's something of note. In fact, at least affected, it was ridiculously far south for a storm. It's fantastic.
Well, for the trivia, the closest major hurricane to the South American continent, the mainland, was Flora.
Wow.
By the looks of things. It could be close one, actually. It could actually be something else because of Colombia. It's either Flora or whatever that one is.
No, yeah, Flora came pretty close to Trinidad.
Flora or... Come on, what's the name of that one? Felix, there it is.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, Felix.
One of the two.
Felix came really close.
Felix definitely the closest Cat 4 anyway. There we go. Let's move on.
Yeah.
Well, actually, let's take a look. Could we look at wind shear for the Atlantic by any chance?
Certainly. It'll take a little while for me to pull that up.
Well, in the meantime, we've got questions. Tropical Storm 4213 says, is there a chance you can go out beyond 10 days on the models to see if there's an impact on the US East Coast?
Okay, there's a couple problems with that. First off is that the uncertainty is so high even after 5 days that it's very difficult to tell where a storm's going to be at a certain point. As far as effects on the U.S. East Coast, the chances of that with the latest model runs have gone down significantly, I should say. As far as if anybody in your local area is at this point in time saying outright that there's going to be a major hurricane hitting Florida, I would completely disregard them for one, and possibly try to revoke their meteorological license for two, because that's really just awful PR, awful meteorology. You can't say things for certain. Nobody's got a crystal ball at this point, and if they do, even if they do get it right, it still does not look good. As far as effects on the United States out to 10 days, it's completely uncertain at this point.
We're just going to take it day by day, update by update, aren't we? As to what we're predicting.
We'll probably know about what the effects will be in the States probably by next Monday.
What we do know is the Windward Islands should be very concerned.
Yes.
The Greater Antilles, Hispaniola in particular, should be very concerned. Jamaica, sorta, yes, as well. Cuba, the Leeward Islands, maybe, but not likely. The Bahamas should be watching, and the US should be watching, but nothing's for certain.
Correct. That's probably the best way to put it. But like we've even said on here,
feedback there, Hank, I believe.
You can't tell for certain. Even right now, we can't tell for certain that a storm is going to hit the Dominican Republic in 5 days. It could very easily curve off to the east and hit Puerto Rico. It could very curve off to the west and hit Cuba or Jamaica or whatever. It can stay to the south and hit South America. We honestly don't know. That's why we have these models right now the way that they are.
And it's a peculiar one as well with what the models are predicting. There's so few analogues. We don't have much historical context either.
Exactly. So the only thing that we can really say at this point is out to 5 days, the models seem to be trending towards, maybe even not even 5 days, maybe out to 6 days even. The models seem to be trending towards effects in the Dominican Republic, Jamaica, Cuba. As far as the southern western Antilles, like Martinique, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, Grenada, the Grenadines, Tobago, and especially Barbados, this storm, I don't know if it'll exactly be a storm by the time it gets there, but I would definitely be concerned for heavy rainfall, potentially gusty winds. From there.
All you need is Erica to remind you that you don't need a strong storm.
Oh, yeah. Erica dumping well over 11 inches of rain on Dominica, causing $500 million worth of damage on just one island. So, absolutely.
Well, here's the wind shear. It's up and down, depending where you are.
Yeah, it's... I mean, this is about the most... I've seen the wind shear in the Atlantic. It's really hard to comment on because it's just... a mess. If you really look at it, it's not good, but it's not bad. It's
Now, I've seen a comment. Who was it now? Gavin Laws says wind speed probabilities for when it reaches Barbados. I'd say chances of a tropical storm conditions for Barbados are low. It's possible, unlikely. I think rainfall will be a bigger threat.
yeah. I would definitely be more concerned about rainfall at this point in Barbados. Maybe once the storm gets towards St. Lucia and St. Vincent and the Grenadines, it might be a little bit stronger at that point, but still heavy rainfall will be the biggest threat from the storm until it moves into the Caribbean.
Exactly. I believe David has joined us. So hello, David.
Yes, I have, and good to be on board.
Good evening, or morning as it is over there. And any thoughts?
On 97L, well, it's one system that is developing, and the threat's building, and I'm just curious to see when it will officially become a tropical depression.
Actually, I feel like I'm gonna do a quick little update on storms in the Eastern Pacific.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay.
Rosalind.
Tropical Storm Rosalind is now a 50-mile-an-hour tropical storm. It's probably peaking right now. Looks like it's probably going to start weakening as we get into tonight, and then should be no more by the time we get into Wednesday. We also have Tropical Depression 19, which is now in the Central Pacific, interestingly enough. Just barely, though. If it does form west of 140W, which is the cutoff between the Eastern Pacific and the Central Pacific, it would be named Eureka or Eureka. I'm not entirely sure how the pronunciation is. Eureka, okay. If it forms east...
It's not you, it's just Ulika.
Ulika, okay. If it forms to the east of 140 West, then it would be named Seymour, which is the next name on the Eastern Pacific naming list, which...
Seymour.
We've done pretty quickly, actually.
And again, I would like to go back to that question about what the intensity is going to be for Barbados. We could say right now that effects in Barbados will probably start in I think the models were saying 36 to 48 hours, and you can just see how split the models are even out to then. So
yeah, my goodness.
You pretty much it's take a pick at this point. I'm not willing to go ahead and do that. I'm going to at least wait for the storm to form.
It's a massive spread, just 24 hours out.
Is.
36 hours, even bigger, almost double.
I mean, there is a 50-mile-per-hour spread of winds between all the intensity on the models here, and out to even just 36 hours. That's ridiculous. I mean, out to 48 hours, the models have this thing anywhere between 85 miles per hour and 35 miles per hour.
Wow.
So that is just how uncertain the intensity of the storm is right now. And that's kind of to be expected since the storm hasn't formed yet, hasn't gotten its core going yet. We haven't even gotten a plane into the storm yet, at least I don't think.
I think that's due tomorrow.
Once all that stuff starts going, once you start getting all the gears going, you're going to see this error shrink down. But the intensity is all over the place. It's very difficult to tell with this storm.
Yeah. Interesting comments.
Okay.
Exceeded. The
And it won't be
GFNI intensity guide being the actual one, that I doubt.
Yeah, that's again.
Just so
don't
happens to be the strongest one.
Yes. Again, don't lean on any particular of the spaghetti flux. I've taken off the screen share because I thought it was going to be irrelevant there, but now I got to put it back on. Again, you can see the ship's model is also on the top end.
Oh gosh, yes.
Probably, again, I wouldn't really look at the intensity guidance with as much of a spread as this is. I definitely take this with a grain of salt, and just be very, very careful. Don't just take a look at one of these lines and say that's what's going to happen. You know, I could go ahead and say, oh, the UK Met is the
Gotta say though, Devon,
lowest.
HWRF best model this year is developing consistency.
Yes, I do know, and yes, the HWRF is producing a
Cat 3
significant
plus.
system in the Eastern Caribbean.
And in pretty much all the model runs since today, midnight, 0 Zulu, 6 Zulu, 12 Zulu, not sure about 18, but those three at the very least imply that there's going to be a landfall in the Dominican Republic. And not such an abrupt northerly turn, more of a gradual one.
Yes, but that's because it's so far north to begin with.
Yeah, it does go a bit further north, doesn't it? It sort of has a... It believes that it'll make up a lot of degrees latitude in the next day or two.
Yes.
So, well, that will be revealing if it did do that, and if it didn't do that, those models will change again.
Exactly. And again, to hammer on my point, you could go ahead and say that the GFNI is going to happen. I can go ahead and equally say, well, look at the UK Met. It's only producing a 35, 40 mile per hour tropical storm. I'm going to say that's what's going to happen. So you really can't point to just one of these specific things and say, that's what's most likely to happen. That's what's going to happen. You got to take a consensus, and that's almost impossible with the way that the models are spreading.
And just picking up on what Devon just said, Nathan, we're looking at the models for 97 elk, and UK Met, it's been chopping and changing when factoring in previous runs.
I've been looking at it a few times, and that is an interesting one. I think it's the furthest south model, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
It is.
We actually, this is kind of unrelated, but we have a question from Mashed Potatoes 2000 asking how many more storms does anyone think will form in the Atlantic this year?
Good question.
I'd say another 2 or 3 if we're lucky.
It's considering it's a National Hurricane Center, probably 5
or 6.
Well, just picking up on Devon's response to mashed potatoes, we've got to factor in the the African wave. Devon or Nathan, we just don't know how many more invest areas are going to come off the African coastline.
Well, that suggests it's winding down now.
Yeah.
Towards, once we start getting in towards October and November, those waves don't really come off as vigorous as Africa, and we really need to take a look at the Caribbean and the North Atlantic Ocean, because that's where you see most of your subtropical convergence into
especially
hurricanes.
In a year like this year, you'd imagine 2010, 1998.
1995 as well.
Yeah, you had Tanya for him.
So there were actually tons of high latitude hurricanes in 1998. Yeah, having Ivan, Jean, Carl, Lisa, Nicole, all of them forming at very northern latitudes.
Tropical Storm 4213 says, just a question for everyone in the call. Have you noticed over the past couple of years that storms have tracked further west than forecast? Well, if that was true, Joaquin would have hit the US East Coast as a Cat 3.
Yes. So that is mainly, and I'll tell you why that phenomenon is occurring, is because what happens is the left of the cone is generally for weaker track systems, and the right of the cone is generally for stronger track systems. That's a general rule. Doesn't always work out, but that's a general rule that weaker systems will trend to the left, stronger systems will trend to the right. And that's what we've been seeing, is that the intensity guidance has been set maybe a little high for a lot of storms, and thus we've been seeing those storms not reach the intensity that they were previously thought they were going to reach, and that creates the phenomenon that you see, that storms are tracking to the west of their cones.
I'm going to take a few minutes away here at the desk, but you guys can keep going.
Okay.
I just like to going to take a look at some of the wind shear maps and the water vapor loops. Last night there was, I believe, a Saharan dust cloud to the north of the system. That's somewhat going away now, but it's still lingering there. It really shouldn't affect the system too much. It's getting more moist as we get closer in towards the Caribbean, especially in the northern Caribbean. It's, I guess, more moist than the southern Caribbean. Wind shear graphic is just like Devin said earlier, meh. It looks like this most recent graphic shows some of the shear ahead of future Matthew to be less, I think, than the last one. I'm not entirely sure on that. And what else is there? The system, it's very broad right now, and it's a very broad circulation. Right now it really needs to, tighten up and be confined to a much smaller area to be considered a legitimate tropical storm. Because if you notice, to the north of the system, the winds are moving quite strong, but towards the south of the system, the westerlies are very weak. That's indicative of a circulation that is strengthening, but because the circulation of the system is rather large, it might take a little bit more time than a much smaller system. Okay. It seems... Okay. David, do you want to say anything?
Devin has disappeared. I'm here again. And David's over
and
there
I'm
somewhere.
here. And simulcasting via the extra channel, but it's good to be here on the main channel. And Nathan, the other channel attracted it's a Shay Maloney. I posted it through to this room, and he's down there in the Playa de Cayman area.
Carmen?
Yeah, he's down there till October the 3rd.
Oh, right.
And he'll be following our service.
Oh, wonderful.
97L.
Well, I was there just 2 months ago.
Yes,
1 month, nearly
that's
2
right.
months ago.
So he's down there till October the 3rd.
Nice. The weather is nice. I looked at the forecast there just today. Thunderstorms, I believe, forecasted at the weekend. But until then, hot and partly cloudy for the most part, I believe. Go ahead.
A look at right now. Tropical Storm 4213 asks, does it worry anyone that there has been a more consistent blocking pattern that has happened more often over northeastern Canada in the past 5 years? Well, I wouldn't say really. I really wouldn't say that it's making me nervous, but I'd say it's something it's something you really need to watch out for by the time we get into October, because we've seen storms that have a very hard time tracking. Probably the two biggest examples of this would be Sandy and Joaquin. Sandy, of course, hooked into the New Jersey coast because of that blocking high, and Joaquin slipped underneath it and was able to shoot on out to sea.
True.
So it's very hard to predict.
And we've got.
Storms could.
We always remember the exceptions, but all these storms that we see going out to sea quite merrily.
There are exceptions, but those, especially in the October time frame, those are just two storms that I could really think of, because now that we're actually getting into that time of year, it's really something we need to watch.
We're talking about over a long period of time in coming years. I'm not really sure. All I can tell you is that stuff like that has always happened. There's plenty of storms that have curved into the US, probably due to high pressures, historic storms as well.
Exactly.
I don't know whether the New England hurricane might have done that or not, but it didn't move out to sea, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And a few in the 50s and so on.
And another comment from Tropical Storm 4213. It also looks like there's a big flare-up on 97L at the end of the visible radar. I don't have that up right now, but I will screen share and see if I could find it.
It is shown on the on the stream all the time in the left-hand side. It is updated every so often. I've just put up the update now for any new frames. Gotta say, it
doesn't look like it.
Not a flare-up, but perhaps organization increasing over that period there.
It looks like, I don't really know. I can't really tell, but it looks like maybe it's starting to spin a little faster, which would suggest
I'm still yet to see a center of circulation, however.
Yeah, and this is what I was talking about with the weak westerlies and the pretty strong easterlies. When you get these invests like these large, vigorous waves coming up the coast of Africa, what we really need to watch for organization is how is the direction of winds coming. It is spinning, yes, it has a circulation, but is it close? Is it tight enough? And we can tell that through, we can see how much that is going on by looking at the way the winds are blowing. So as you can see up here, these winds are blowing pretty fast, which is what we expect normally. But you can see, and down and over on the west side of the system, they're going at an okay pace. But as you can see, off towards the south or the east of the system, they are at a crawl. That means that it's getting there.
Right.
So at least once we get it through all four quadrants, that means that the circulation should be tight enough and it should be closed to consider this thing a tropical storm.
Let's just take a little diversion here. Take a look at Megi right now, because first visible has just arrived. Might be interesting to see properly up close. The storm itself looking pretty good on infrared as well.
That doesn't look bad at all. Let me see if I can stop it. Oh, wait, no, I just deleted that one frame.
I'm just gonna try and get the infrared imagery up. Well, at least for my personal viewing, because
doesn't look too bad right now. But it's once it gets towards Taiwan, it's just gonna fall off.
As the JMA's imagery alluded to not long ago, it's starting to look much better. I think it's just about to complete an eyewall replacement cycle, but I must say, not got long until that landfall in Taiwan, and we'll talk more about that in the next hour, I expect. But there it is. And we'll field any questions on that also.
What other questions do we have? Doesn't really look like having a lot of questions.
That's fine. We're here if you need us.
Yep.
Don't feel nervous. Just shoot us a comment. We'll very likely answer it.
Yes. Who else is here? I think Isaac and Orlando are here. They were certainly. Yes, they are. Hello. You're back. Any comments on the ongoing invest?
Well, overall, what I would like to say about the invest, currently it's a possible threat. There's most likely it's going to become a tropical storm, and from there, possibly even a hurricane. Now, the direction and the track is still uncertain, although now a lot of the models are now turning it towards the north, somewhere around Hispaniola or even Cuba.
Yeah, Hispaniola looks to be the most likely scenario right now, but the models, they were in pretty good agreement this morning.
They were.
Now
that's changed.
Yeah, now they've kind of sort of split up, it seems, right? There's still models going into Hispaniola, yes, but some of them have kind of stalled it around here and moved it up north.
Still a majority. But aside from the fact that the models are predicting that, Shear Maloney wants to know why would the storm go north?
Well, it's very typical for storms at this time of year to curve northwards due to incoming cold fronts, just a blocking trough or a blocking ridge. It's very typical once you get past the peak. It's more likely to see storms recurve than to make them keep going west. Good examples of that would be storms that try to come close to the U.S. at one point that sort of, I can't really think of any off the top of my head, but storms that look like they could come towards the United States but end up recurving before. A good example of that, I think, would be Katia. That came pretty close towards the United States but then recurved pretty sharply before it could even get there.
There is a front over the U.S. at the moment, isn't there?
Yes, actually brought...
Yes.
I don't know whether it be that one or whether that's going to be a little bit early and whether it's something that would come behind that.
Well, right now that front is stationary over my area. Actually,
it is.
It took out the power over my area last night, but that's besides the point.
Wow.
It's moving very slowly, so most likely this front will shoot this thing off towards the north.
It's quite expansive as well.
It will expand the wind field. Might increase the winds due to some baroclinitic effects, but not necessarily due to what you would normally expect. Now the question is, after if this scenario does come true, after the Hispaniola or Cuba or Eastern Cuba landfall, as it moves north to the Bahamas, and eventually I would assume at least in between Hatteras and Bermuda, does it recurve out to sea or does it keep going north? I don't think this system. This is very unlikely to at least make a landfall in the northeast. I do not see that happening at all. Plus, it is way too early to tell.
Well, it doesn't look like it. Looking at the weather conditions there, I can't see where there's going to be a big high pressure that will push it west.
Right, but this is a weather map that's 10 days plus before we could see that very, very unlikely scenario happen at least.
Wait and see.
Just have to wait and see. Just only time will tell.
Yeah. I like to note that the ECMWF is actually, I guess it's trying to move it through Cuba, right between Cuba and Hispaniola, before going towards the Bahamas. But it only goes out to 240 hours, but even that is far out. So right now, I would just say it's very uncertain of if it's going to go west or north.
Yeah, that actually does bring up a pretty good point. We should probably go through the models at this point, considering we have about 5 minutes left during this hour. So
we did it at the top of the hour, so we may as well do it at the bottom as well.
So what the ECMWF is saying, because that's the one I'm on right now, saying we could have, this is 850 millibar winds, 10 millibar winds aren't unfortunately not available. So that would suggest at least a tropical storm moving through. Making a landfall in Venezuela and or Colombia, I don't really know about that. But then it moves towards the north, probably either a hurricane landfall, probably, it looks like on the eastern tip of Cuba, and skirting the western coast of Haiti.
Yeah, that's close.
And then into the Bahamas. The model that no one's been keeping their eye off of lately is the GFS model, because they've been saying things that are just completely ludicrous for this system.
They've been doing these kinds of things all year, and it's always been wrong. Will it be right for once?
I doubt it, because let's see what it's saying. So this one's saying 950 millibars just to
Good
the
Lord.
north of Venezuela. Yeah, I don't really know about that. And then furthermore, 941. And then 940 bottoms out 940. It moves just to the west of Santo Domingo, which is probably not which would be worse if it moves toward the west of Santo Domingo than if it moved toward the east due to the rotation of the storm. And then it moves toward the North Atlantic and becomes an absolutely massive system, bottoming out at 923. Jeez. I don't. Yeah, that's no. And then just moving on out to sea. That's what GFS is saying. The CMC model is saying that the storm will move south of Barbados, clipping the northern coast of South America, stalling, and then moving towards a pretty similar track to Tomas of 2010, actually, and skirting, doing pretty much what the ECMWF is saying.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Oh god, no, it is again.
That was a huge storm with tropical storm force winds extending from Bermuda to Hatteras.
Doing a Sandy.
Careful.
Doing a Sandy without the ending.
Yeah, NavGem is saying that the storm will do a pretty similar thing, actually, except actually making a landfall in Jamaica, surprisingly, and then move through Cuba and then through the western Bahamas. That could be right over Grand Bahama, I believe. Either Grand Bahama or Andros Island, I'm not entirely sure.
That looks to be a bit of an outsider there, with the intensity there. That's 850 millibars, but you wouldn't think that a storm would intensify significantly beyond those landfalls, because those Greater Antilles wreck storms.
Oh, yeah.
Sandy struggled massively after the Cuba landfall, which it did as a Cat 3. That's the most recent example. There's many more.
Yeah. I'm not going to check the JMA model because that's just broken and always will be broken.
And so is this one.
HWRF doesn't go nearly that far out enough, only 42 hours, but in that time it already develops the storm into a strong tropical storm.
So that's still initializing, is it?
Yeah, so let's go to the previous run.
The previous run is something interesting. Have a look.
I've seen it. Says that the storm will pretty much make a landfall over Barbados and then move right in between. Oh, hurricane. Excuse me. And then move between St. Vincent and St. Lucia.
And now you've
move
got
towards
the
the
major
north.
hurricane.
Major hurricane. That could be the pressure's supposed to be just Cat 4, though the winds was just Cat 3.
Nearly Cat 4.
Nearly Cat 4. It doesn't make it all the way quite to the Dominican Republic, but I would assume this would keep moving north and then make a landfall on the eastern side of the Dominican Republic.
Santo Domingo.
Farther east of Santo Domingo.
You'd hope.
Last but not least, the GFDL. Actually, I'm going to zoom out on this because sometimes GFDL is just kind of weird with me. It develops a system, not into a tropical storm, but it keeps on moving it west. That's what I would expect.
There's the outlier then.
There's the outlier. The weaker storm. Typically, with these weaker storms, they continue kind of defying what you would normally expect.
I said earlier in the show that this morning, 5 out of the 6 major models predicted it to cross over Hispaniola or Cuba. This was the 6th one at the time, the one that disagreed, and it's still disagreeing. So GFDL is the outlier, but with the models in not much consensus, not least over intensity. That's going to change the track as time goes on, depending how strong it gets.
Yep. So that's all the models. Excuse me. Aircraft. There's no recon missions. There is one scheduled for tomorrow afternoon, though. Stats on the system. At least. So 30 knot winds. That's 35 miles an hour. Okay. Minimum assumption pressure of 905. No, oh wait, that's wrong. That's my bad. Whoops. Okay. Maximum winds are 30 miles an hour, and minimum central pressure right now is 1,008 millibars. We've looked at the intensity guidance. We've talked about that. Talked about forecast models. Here's the analogs. I don't really agree with any of these, but analogs don't really forecast the track.
We'll probably talk more about historical storms and analogs in the next hour. In the meantime, that's the end of our second hour of coverage, and we'll be going into the third, talking more about Inves 97L and Typhoon Megi, which is rapidly approaching Taiwan. We'll give you the latest on that at the top of the next hour. Stay tuned. Hello.